I would say talk to people that are in your business. I mean, I had a couple of people say you always should start your own business, so that was helpful. And then I talked to people that were doing lead gen, who gave me a couple of pointers, and then also gave me a reference to an engineer that does email engineering. If I didn't have that guy,
Mm.
that'd be a different way of doing business because he knows what he's doing on the. There's like DKIM, DMARC records, SPF records, MX records. Like I have no clue still how to set that stuff up, and he's a very important part of my setup. So I would say pay it forward. Like help other people. I've always helped other people find jobs. I've actually taken my whole approach for lead gen and say, listen, if you're looking for a job, use a couple of these tools that I use and help find yourself a job. There's even a thing called lazyapply.com, which is an automation so you can apply for jobs. So I really don't think there's a way that you could not find a job or not start your own company if you have the drive. So it
Mm.
kind of makes me like, how do I hire someone with the same type of drive? Because not many people have that. So
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Michael Falato. And Michael's a quick introduction. So after high school, went into the National Guard. Started out doing a bit of video production in college as well. Found out that he loved sales, and then back in about '94, found the internet and started out with Monster.com, and then went over to Warner Brothers and worked for a few other media companies as well as some SaaS companies. Along the way, also earned his black belt, which was sounds like it'd be fun. And then about 2 years ago, realized that he was a better hunter than others and built an automation business, which is what he'll talk about as he shared his journey and what he's doing today. So with that much as introduction, welcome on the podcast, Michael.
thanks, Devin. How you doing?
Oh, doing pretty well, or no complaints. So, well, I just gave kind of a quick introduction to a longer journey, but maybe to rewind and unpack that a bit. Tell us a little bit about how your journey got started coming out of high school, doing the National Guard, and studying a little bit of video production.
Yeah, my background in school was high school was I definitely wanted to do video production, wanted to work on commercials and features and so forth like that. My cousin Danny Falato was a producer or is a producer in Chicago. Worked on the Cubs and the Bears and worked with Harry Carey and those guys. So had a pretty good mentor inside the family. Um, so started doing that. Went to school for college for that for video production. And when I was doing that, realized I didn't like lighting sets for 15 hours and getting paid kind of a standard rate, which was not too bad back then. But sales, you can obviously earn what you kind of basically earn what you put out, right? So it's a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more of a variable rate. So in 1994, I was working at a company called Chicagoland Works, and that had like a video production feel to it, where we went out to local businesses and did video production highlights on a local TV station for them. It was pay to play, but it was sales and it was production. So I learned about the internet back then, and remember seeing Disney's website basically crawl on the screen, barely make it because it was so slow, the internet
Mm.
back then and dial up. But that's kind of why I got a taste, and then went up to monster.com in 96 and
Now,
kind of took
one
off
maybe
from.
just before you get too far in your journey, just kind of one question, because I mean, it sounds like you got into sales and you enjoyed it, but how did you initially figure that out, or how did you identify that sales was what you liked or enjoyed or what you wanted to do? Did you just happen to luck into it and try a different job, or you had a friend that referred you over to it, or kind of how did you get into sales and figure out that's the direction you wanted to go?
um, I was doing sales in high school at like luggage companies, shoe companies in the mall. So I knew in newspapers, the Daily Herald. So I was good at that, but it wasn't something I was going to do full time because I wanted to do video production. when I realized that I could do video production slash sales and kind of do both, that's
Mm.
kind of where I started crossing barriers. I'm like, wait, I could probably still do production somewhat on the side and but sell and make more money. And I enjoy convincing people of things versus kind of being one of those guys that hold a camera all day, which is not necessarily good for me because I'm so fidgety. So I need to kind of be doing some more than just one thing at a time. So yeah, there was always sales in my blood. And my dad was a sales guy, my grandpa, my mom. So there's always that in there. But I knew that I wanted to do production and kind of got out of it based on the blend of sales and production. And
Mm.
then when I stayed in it to about 2000 when I was in the Air Force Reserves. So I still did video production even after I stopped doing it for a living. And I basically stopped in 2000 with the Air National Guard in Illinois. Then I went to California.
All right. No, makes perfect sense. So you okay, so you figure out that you like sales, it's a good avenue for you, presents a good opportunity. Now, as you're going along and doing sales, how did you get to kind of getting into monster.com and the internet? And I mean, today it makes sense, sales and a lot of, businesses conducted online, but if you had to go back to the early days of 2000s, it was still, fairly new. And so how did you kind of make that transition from doing more of video production in that area to going more to internet, monster.com and some of those things?
Yeah, I was working straight commission at a production company that selling and liked the job, was good at it, like that I was learning from this guy, but there was no money to be made at the way he was doing it. And and then it basically was I've always applied for jobs like you would apply to get up clients. So when I was trying to get a job in production, I faxed out like 5,000 resumes from college, and so that was kind of my sale. Selling myself was kind of the first sales job. And then basically, and when I was at the company doing production, I found a company that was a pretty big company called ADP that does
Mm.
payroll and worked in the auto business. So I basically went to go work for Auto Connect, which was the ADP website company, sold websites to dealerships. That was inside sales. I was more of an outside sales guy, and I still applying. And then the Monster Board it was called then, called on me and wanted me to work for them, and I was very successful. That he even got a name Monster Mike at Monster because I was closing $1 million in a quarter back in
Mm.
1997, 96. So that's kind of where it started bleeding over is that you go out and learn about companies because you're doing production on them. And one of it was the internet ISP. I had no idea what the internet ISP meant even then. So I saw that and just got a job at a bigger company, but didn't like working inside. I wanted to be outside salesperson, and that's kind of where my real career started taking off. Where I made about 35, $40,000 base, which is okay back then, but I was making 150, $160,000 at 25, 26 in those days, and that was pretty good. So
Mm.
I became Monster Mike because I was the guy that was getting 12 to 15 meetings a week and closing a lot of deals because you either have it or you don't. You either have that earning, yearning drive and you want to win, and you want in even getting meetings is a win, not just closing deals, or you're having to be pushed. And that's not really the way I needed to be. I was always self-motivated.
No, makes perfect sense. So now walk us through because you did the kind of the inside sales and doing a lot of that or a lot of that work, almost from 2000 up until a couple of years ago for different media companies and SaaS companies. So walk us through what was kind of that part of the journey, or what companies did you work for, and kind of over what span?
Well, I was outside sales. I was never really inside sales my whole life. I was always an outside sales guy, but outside people do inside stuff too. So,
Sure.
um, but yeah, it's working in recruitment marketing, which was where I started, and then I got into sports marketing, where I sold text deals, SMS deals to the NFL, USTA, about 35 professional sports teams. So I was pretty well known in the sports marketing space, known with working with teams, working with leagues, working with broadcasters, colleges to activate sponsors using real-time video again, back to video a little bit, real-time video to screen stuff like text to screen and vote, or see your name up on a video board, or see your name up on a comment from Twitter, on all the stuff that you see nowadays. I was one of the first companies and people to sell that in like 2006, 2007, when people didn't even have a smartphone. So you had to
Hmm.
really want to text someone on a feature phone.
No, makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Now, so you said you did that, I think it was for about, 18, 20 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, between sports marketing and software sales, basically since 1995, 96.
Makes sense.
Always working for other companies, and then 2 years ago started my own company, and highly successful at doing that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask. So, you do that, that's a pretty good period of time, doing, sales for others and doing and finding pretty good success with that. So, to rewind, fast forwarding, I guess, or rewinding, however you want to say it, to a couple years ago, how did you decide that you wanted to finally to make the leap to doing it yourself or to running your own business as opposed to doing it for others? Or kind of what was that genesis for making that transition?
So I was working for an IT company that I helped grow from 250 to about 2.8 million in the last 18 months. And they wanted me to hire SDRs. And they said, why don't you just start your own company, LLC? We'll pay you, you pay them. I'm not for sure why that was the case at the time, but I think they wanted to not have them on the payroll. And
Hmm.
I was kind of against it because I'm like, why would I do that? And then I realized that I'm good at doing this lead gen top of funnel approach. Maybe I could have my wife kind of help me with this part of the company and quit her job, where they were kind of hassling her at 38,000 a year for selling auto parts, which was not even something she was interested in. So
Hmm.
she quit her job, helped me with full throttle, and within months, while I was still helping the other company, we started making $12,000 to $15,000 a month, which is way past a couple $1,000 working for a auto parts company. So fast forward about 12 to 15 months after that, I'm at 50 to 70,000 a month, and the margins are really good, and it's a repeatable and scalable process. So I didn't build any database. I didn't make LinkedIn, but I automated all the ways to use LinkedIn, email, and
Hmm.
even make roundtables to get people leads.
Hmm.
And you have to be careful the way you send out emails in LinkedIn and do things, because you can ruin your domain, ruin your profile, or not get enough people even to show up for a webinar or seminar or a roundtable. So if you have a good brand and a good offering, I can help automate that and expand and basically explore much faster than you could do internally. And that's what the difference is that go hire a kid, which is a sales development rep, for 4 to 5 thousand a month. Then you have to train them. You have to get Zoom. You have to get databases. You have to basically hold their hand. Within 6 months to 12 months, they don't want to be at that person's making phone calls and emails all day. They want to sell. So my whole approach is you can hire that, or you can hire me in my approach and my staff, which is not a huge staff, but we can do so much more with automation than you can do with just someone out of school.
Hmm.
So I basically help feed marketing qualified leads or sales qualified leads to companies with an automation approach, but it's much more of a Moneyball approach. Look at the analytics, tell me I look at what's working, and we fine tune the reach, we fine tune the filters, fine tune the subject line and the content so that it gets people to book meetings.
No, makes perfect sense, and I'm certainly a big proponent of automation that helps to leverage and get a lot of things done where you're not having to have nearly as large of team in order to be successful. So makes perfect sense from my end. So now now you said, okay, we're gonna make the leap. Our margins are better, profits better. We can be our own boss. We can set our own direction in that. Now, as you're
Mhm.
going through all of that, how has it gone over the last couple of years? Has it been a rocket ship of success to the top, or has it been, slow or bumpy, or figuring things out and figuring out how to, run the business, or kind of how has that gone for you over the last couple of years?
It's been pretty much positive the whole way. I think the only thing that kind of was messing with my mind was when I would lose a client because A, they didn't have a good message, or B, they didn't have a good offering. And really, I'm an automation expert. I'm not someone that guarantees leads because I basically send out emails faster, LinkedIn faster, same thing, the same thing you would do. So if
Mhm.
you have a good brand and good message, it works. If you have one client and two people in the company and you're just getting started, basically I have to try to brand you as well as get you meetings. So I took failures, I guess I would call them, too much to heart, and thought, man, I'm kind of getting fired, even though I have 5, 10 more clients, 15 more clients. But what I
Mm.
realized is that instead of just offering emails, I offered LinkedIn and roundtables. So now I have 3 ways to win. I didn't charge more money for it, and to be much more of a consultant and a problem solver versus just do emails, because email, not all the time does emails resonate, and sometimes even all 3 of those don't resonate for a brand, and that's just, I don't know what to tell them, how to go to market. I'm not necessarily their VP of sales. So they had, I set expectations like, this is what I'm doing. I'm amplifying your brand. I'll probably get 10 to 25 meetings a month, and set expectations. If they know the expectations of what I will and won't do and what I promise and I can't promise, then
Mm.
it's good. But I think at first I was too emotional about losing a client. Now it sucks when I do, but I talk to a lot of people that do what I do, and the average tenure is 6 to 12 months. And people go, "Oh, I think I know how to do it," and they don't, and they move on, and then they realize that they should have probably stuck with a company that knows how to do outreach.
No, makes perfect sense. So now that you've kind of caught up a bit to the future, one of the other things that I found interesting is you have a bit of at least early on in your career as you're going to college and whatnot, as a military background. So how did that kind of inform what you're doing, or did it inform what you're doing, or is there kind of any overlaps or things that you learned that were impactful on the business?
The military just gave me a way to go to college, a way to serve my country. Like even on Halloween every year, my wife gives me Halloween because I wear my uniform still. That's my Halloween costume. Like, hey, I wore this for real, and this is one time I get to kind of dress up again. But obviously, I don't want to wear my uniform otherwise, because I don't think that's the way to do things. But it helped. It brought structure. I really think every person in America should serve 1 or 2 years in the military. You don't have to be a sniper or someone killing people. You can do what I did. I was an aircraft mechanic for 3 years, and then a video production specialist in the military, in the reserves, 1 week in a month. So they paid for my college, gave me lifelong friends. They gave me discipline. I would recommend it to anybody. I wish my kids would do it, but I don't know if they will. So, but most states will if you sign up for 6 years, they'll give you your scholarships, militia or reserve scholarship, to go
Mm.
to school at any state college. I mean, I didn't have money to go to school, so I had to do that. So it was a very good part of my life, and I wish I would have stayed in for 20, but I got out in 2000, because the internet was blowing up, and then it blew up for real, for the worst, in 2001 when the whole dot-com bomb hit. But
Mm.
the whole idea is, you look in jiu-jitsu or life or sales, you lose and you learn. And so when you do something wrong, you take ownership and you figure out what you did wrong, or what you could have done better. And that's always one thing I've always asked. Like, I know you went with someone else, or no, this is not working out. Can you tell me, like, what I can do better? And if you don't learn like that, especially in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to be stuck at your level. So um, you got to treat everything in life as, if you didn't win, then how can you learn?
No, and I think that's a great outlook, and I think that too often we just get frustrated by our losses or things that we didn't win on, and then we just want to move past them as quick as we can. But if you can take a step back and actually figure out why you didn't win on that one, or what you could have done better, it's always makes it so you can win
Yeah.
on the next one, or and improve and do better. So I think that's a great takeaway. So. Well, awesome. Well, with that, as we start to wrap up the episode and as we reach the end and time's already flying by, I always love to ask 2 questions toward the end of each episode. And you can maybe hit a little bit on one, but we'll circle back to them both anyway. So the first question I'll always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
Um, I mean, I left Monster in '98 when I was on top of the market. I was selling the most. I had a great relationship with my boss. And I went to Warner Brothers and did not like my boss. And I thought working at Warner Brothers in Burbank and living in California, having a film and TV background was going to be the best thing in the world. And it was Warner Brothers Online selling advertising. So you got to realize that it's not the company is great, but it depends on how you work, who you work for.
Mm.
And it's not good to work for people that make you miserable or make you feel this anxiety in the morning or anything like that. So I think the biggest thing I learned is you learn, but you don't always jump when you need to jump. But the case now is that I have my own company. If I don't want to work with someone, I will say, listen, I don't think this is a good fit for me and you. And I'm not. It's not one source of revenue. I have a very affordable way of doing business because if I lose one, I still have 15 more clients to work with. And realistically, when you're working for yourself, you only need a couple clients if the worst case in your life to survive. And now I just bought a nice new Corvette, the mid-engine Corvette. I'm not worried about paying for college. I'm not worried about giving my kids money. It's a nice place to be. But that's the biggest thing is not to always think the grass is greener somewhere else. And if
Mm.
you're enjoying your work, I don't know. If I didn't never left Monster, would I be what I do? Would I be here? Would I still be in recruitment? Even though I got out of recruitment, went to sports, and then came back a little bit. I don't know. I think everything happens for a reason. So I don't know if it was a mistake or it led me down this path.
No, but I like that because I think, one you hit on is that, sometimes it is those, the sometimes the grass isn't always greener even though it appears to be, and sometimes you get excited about the possibilities, and sometimes it works out great, and other times you're saying, hey, I probably should have slowed down and looked into it a bit more. But sometimes that, and the other one I like that you hit on is, the nice thing is when you have a diverse set of clients, you're not so emboldened to one client. You can have multiple ones. Then you get the ability to choose a little bit more. Who do you want to work with? Who is a good fit? You don't have to hate working with them, or if you do, then you say, hey, this isn't a good setup. Whereas if you were emboldened to one client, or you only have a very small amount of diversity, it makes it a lot harder because then you're feeling that pinch. So I think that those are both good mistakes to learn from.
If you work like if you're a salesperson work for one company and you lose that job, you're in crisis mode most
Yep.
of the time. And that's what I hated because you can be close a great quarter and then the next quarter COVID hits and you lose all your clients and I got laid off a job light. So I mean, like, seriously, you had me on stage, now you're letting me go. So I don't want to be beholden to anybody like that. It's like it's not right to basically throw away people, and I think too many companies do that. And I think JobVite and tons of other companies had to let go a lot of people. So now I'm not holding them responsible, but COVID, did a dinger on the world. So um, at least for me, when the economy's bad, the economy's good, people still need to bring in revenue. I'm pretty much in a good space.
No, I think that's some great takeaways, which kind of transitions now to the second question I always ask it, which is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Um, I would say talk to people that are in your business. I mean, I had a couple of people say you always should start your own business, so that was helpful. And then I talked to people that were doing lead gen, who gave me a couple of pointers, and then also gave me a reference to an engineer that does email engineering. If I didn't have that guy,
Mm.
that'd be a different way of doing business because he knows what he's doing on the. There's like DKIM, DMARC records, SPF records, MX records. Like I have no clue still how to set that stuff up, and he's a very important part of my setup. So I would say pay it forward. Like help other people. I've always helped other people find jobs. I've actually taken my whole approach for Legion and say, listen, if you're looking for a job, use a couple of these tools that I use and help find yourself a job. There's even a thing called lazyapply.com, which is an automation so you can apply for jobs. So I really don't think there's a way that you could not find a job or not start your own company if you have the drive. So it
Mm.
kind of makes me like, how do I hire someone with the same type of drive? Because not many people have that. So, does that answer your question?
I think it was a great answer and some great takeaways. So awesome. Well, with that, as we start to wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, the great way is just full throttle falatoleads.com. That's my website. I'm on LinkedIn as well as my company and as myself. There's over 150 references on me on LinkedIn. And my email is Michael at fullthrottleFalatoLeads.com. And feel free to reach out and book. There's a Calendly link on my website. You can book a time with me anytime. Would love to help or just network. I do pay referrals as well. If maybe you're not a fit for what I do, I do only business to business, not B2C companies. So you might have a way that you might have a client that has a client. You want to make an introduction as well. So my whole thing is just be a good friend to people.
No, I think that's a lot of great ways to connect up with you. And I always think that even if sometimes you're not the right fit, if you can make referrals, you can make connections on both ways and make introductions. Always goes a long way to establishing a great relationship. So. Well, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been a fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. If you can make sure to click share, subscribe, and leave us a review, make sure that we can share these awesome journeys with all the other startups and small businesses out there. And if you ever need help with along your journey with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Thank you again, Michael, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.